Dimension Videos.
The Celestia was the pride of the sea, a grand ocean liner, longer than 4 city blocks, with 5 decks of gold-trimmed halls, spiral staircases, and sparkling chandeliers. It was April 1912, and the ship had just left Marseille, heading for New York on its maiden voyage. Her father had died in a mining accident, and her mother worked in a dress shop to make ends meet. On the first day, she stood on the ship's stern, staring at the endless sea, painting clouds in her mind. She didn't belong to the world of polished boots and ballroom laughter, but she didn't care. Her world lived in colors and light, not status. Elena sold paintings in the town square, mostly flowers and small portraits, and saved every coin for a chance to start over in America. She'd bought the cheapest third-class ticket she could find. It wasn't comfort she wanted. It was freedom. The rich sipped champagne under velvet canopies, while below deck, immigrants from across Europe dreamed of a better life. Among them was Elena Marceau, a 19-year-old artist from the south of France. His father, a shipping magnate, had sent him to Europe to grow up and learn responsibility. He turned a corner and almost walked into Elena, who was sketching the coils of rope piled near the railing. Nate was tall, with the look of someone raised to believe he would always get what he wanted, but there was a tiredness in his eyes. He had no desire to take over the family empire. "Because I'm not supposed to want it." She spoke of her little village, of how colors changed just before dusk, and of her dreams to paint city streets and crowds in motion. He shared stories he'd written in secret, of runaway lovers and poets lost at sea. He wanted to write novels, stories of love and risk, not steel and money. Elena showed him the quiet parts of the ship, the boiler workers with soot-stained hands, the violinists who played for themselves below deck. Nate showed her the grand library, upstairs when no one was looking, and snuck sandwiches from the first-class dining room. Nate heard about it at dinner, from his mother's disapproving glance. She wore a second-hand coat, her hair tied in a loose braid, and carried a small leather satchel with her sketchbook and 2 apples. She painted his portrait using a piece of charcoal from the fire room. He found Elena crying near the cargo crates, her satchel at her feet. "Then we'll leave together when we reach New York. I'll get you a place to paint. I'll write. We'll be no one and everything." At the other end of the ship, in a lavish first-class suite, Nathaniel Nate Whitmore, 21, tried to read the newspaper. That evening, while walking alone on the lower decks, Nate wandered too far and got lost near the ship's storage hold. "Sorry," he said, surprised. Elena blinked. "You're far from the piano music." She grabbed her satchel and ran toward the stairs, but a steel gate had been locked, the crew keeping third-class passengers below until lifeboats were ready. "You're far from everything," he said, smiling slightly. He shoved through crowds, tore down hallways, and reached the gate just as a guard was walking away. "I prefer it that way." He noticed her sketchbook. "Are you an artist?" The world melted away. For a moment, the ocean carried only them. "Not yet," she replied. "But I want to be." Nate sat beside her on the bench, ignoring the dirt on his coat. "I want to be a writer." An officer shouted, "Women and children only." The gate creaked open. They ran together through flooded corridors as the ship groaned and tilted. She tilted her head. "Then why do you look like someone about to be punished?" He laughed for the first time in days. They talked until the stars came out. Over the next few days, they met again and again, under lifeboats, behind staircases, anywhere no one would see them. He brought her tea in a silver flask. As it lowered, she watched him get smaller and smaller, standing on the rail as water reached the deck. They laughed like old friends. They fell in love like a whisper growing louder. But their world wasn't built to hold them. Elena was pulled from her lifeboat, barely conscious, clutching her soaked satchel. On the 5th night, during a storm, Elena was caught by a steward near the upper decks and dragged away. She painted Nate's face from memory, the stars over the Atlantic, the rain on the lifeboats, the softness of their last night. Her work slowly gained attention, not for its technique, but for the emotion it carried. "You've embarrassed yourself," she said coldly. "You're not here to chase after strays." She had nothing but her name, a sketchbook, and a memory. Nate left the table without a word and searched the ship for hours. They told me if I'm seen near you again, I'll be locked below, she whispered. He took her hands. She shook her head. You don't know what it's like to be no one. I do now, he said. That night, as rain tapped the windows and waves rocked the ship, they kissed for the first time, hidden in the dark between lifeboats. But fate, like the sea, is not always kind. The next evening, the Celestia struck an uncharted iceberg just before midnight. The jolt sent people tumbling. Alarms rang. Panic spread like fire. Elena was asleep when it happened. She woke to shouting and the sound of boots thundering overhead. She banged on the bars, screaming for help. Nate, in a tuxedo at the upper deck, heard that the lower cabins had been sealed off. Elena, he shouted. She saw him and ran to the bars. Hold on, he said. He pried open a nearby storage box, pulled out a heavy wrench, and smashed the lock until it snapped. Above deck, chaos reigned. Lifeboats were being lowered. Flares lit the sky. Elena looked at Nate, her eyes full of fear. You have to go, he said. No. Not without you. He grabbed her face gently. You have to live. Paint everything we talked about. Promise me. Tears slid down her cheeks. Only if you write our story. He kissed her, then helped her into the last boat. The Celestia sank slowly, its lights flickering out one by one, swallowed by the sea. Hours passed in silence. The night was endless and cold. When rescue ships arrived at dawn, the sea was still, a graveyard of ice and wreckage. She was one of the few survivors. Weeks later, in New York, she sat in a tiny attic room, wrapped in a blanket. But she painted. Every day. Years later, she would become known as one of the most powerful visual storytellers of her time. She never remarried. And she never stopped painting the sea. In her final exhibit, hung in a quiet corner of a gallery, was a single sketch, faded, charcoal on old paper, of a young man smiling with a notebook in his hand. The plaque read, "For the boy who told me to live."
Are you enjoying the music in these stories? The Dimension soundtrack. Out now.